These are the common calls that we get. My husband thinks I'm crazy. My wife thinks I've lost my mind. My in-laws think I'm just way over the top. My parents think I'm losing my mind. These are the conversations that we hear from adults who are trying to solve a problem that they know exists in their home, but they can't put a finger on it. We learn every day new things from each caller, each person that comes to us, each family, each property owner. So it's critical for us to listen. And then the other thing that we do is we document. Documentation here at Spotless is critical because the devil's in the details. Is anybody else in the home experiencing health concerns? What are those health concerns? Have you sought medical attention for these health concerns? What have they told you about these? Have you done laboratory testing on your environment? Have you had canine inspections done? Because they're extremely accurate. Have you had that done? Have you left the property for an extended period of time and seen a change in the health decline for the better in family members? So these are the questions that we're led to ask.
Scott Sansa here, and I'm here with Tina Craig, who is the Chief Operations Officer over at Spotless in Kentucky. How are you doing today, Tina?
Wonderful, Scott. How are you?
Yeah, I'm super good today. It's really good to be talking to you because I know you guys are really, really big on the health impacts of mold and the importance of doing mold remediation properly because of, you know what a mycotoxin is, you know what spores are, you understand all this stuff about the mold remediation. So I guess my first question for you today is when a homeowner is asking or feeling like their home is making them sick, what is it that you're really listening for and how do you help them understand whether mold is part of the problem?
Yeah, so the very first thing when a client calls, we have to understand that they are in a quandary, okay? Because oftentimes they are sensing things themselves or they're seeing their family members, sensing that their family members are not doing well, but they're kind of in this weird phase of they're caught between, I know something's wrong. My intuition is telling me something's wrong. I can't see it. I don't have definitive evidence of it, but I know in my heart and soul that there is a problem. And oftentimes they're kind of in a battle of the minds between them and their family members, whether that is family members who live in the home with them or family members externally that they're looking to for support. These are the common calls that we get. My husband thinks I'm crazy. My wife thinks I've lost my mind. My in-laws think I'm just way over the top. My parents think I'm losing my mind. These are the conversations that we hear from adults who are trying to solve a problem that they know exists in their home, but they can't put a finger on it. So when we get those calls, the very first thing that we practice here is to do more listening than we do talking right out of the gates. Our job is to pull in as much data as we can. The best people to give us that information are the people that are cooking in the pot at the moment, right? The ones that are going through it. They're going to be able to describe things, and some things, in some cases, we've yet to see or experience ourselves in cases. We learn every day new things from each caller, each person that comes to us, each family, each property owner. So it's critical for us to listen. And then the other thing that we do is we document. Documentation here at Spotless is critical because the devil's in the details. So when we hear what people tell us, we only retain a small percentage of what we hear. So we use different mechanisms to make sure that the data that's coming in is being recorded efficiently and effectively to make sure that we can go back and review that as a team so that when we're putting together a scope of work or we're putting together a scope of getting the family from where they are to the next point, we can review that material and say, oh, hold on a second. They brought this up. We need to pay attention to that because we all forgot about that, right? Because humans we're fallible, right? We forget things. We retain only certain parts of the information. And some things weigh more for us than others. So we retain that and not the other. So documentation is huge. And that is over a phone call. So, what does that look like? We're recording that phone call. We have dictators, AI dictators that are dictating those phone calls. We have AI technology that's pulling out certain specific points that need additional questions asked, areas we need to be paying focus on those areas, specific areas. We're using technology today, and we will continue to learn as technology advances, which is advancing very quickly, how we can make our jobs of getting the information from the client better and more dialed in. I always say that when a client calls, when we listen to that person, if we're really truly listening, they will tell us just about everything we need to know. I can give you a quick example of that. We had a young lady that called the other day, and she said, you know, my husband and I, we had a water loss occur and we took care of the dry out ourselves. This has been about 8 to 12 months prior. She said, but the other day we were doing some remodeling and we opened up the wall. We discovered the wall was full of mold. So I thought to myself, I ought to call and see if we can't get somebody to come out here, take a look, and see if this is the only place in the home that we have this, because we are investing a lot of money right now. And if we're going to do it, we probably ought to make sure that we don't have other issues elsewhere. We could take care of those too during the remodel. As she was talking, she made the comment that the last 12 years had been difficult. And I said, you said the last 12 years have been difficult with this house. What do you mean by that? And she said, I've been battling cancer for 12 years. It comes, we get rid of it, and it comes back. We get rid of it, and it comes back. She said, I can't seem to get away from it. Well, knowing what we know in the industry, that was a red flag. That was an indicator for us to dial into. So then I start the questions. What other occupants live in the home? Is anybody else in the home experiencing health concerns? What are those health concerns? Have you sought medical attention for these health concerns? What have they told you about these? Have you done laboratory testing on your environment? Have you had canine inspections done? Because they're extremely accurate. Have you had that done? Have you left the property for an extended period of time and seen a change in the health decline for the better in family
Mm.
members? So these are the questions that we're led to ask. And then once we get the data, once they share everything with us, we then ask them a very important question before we engage and start walking them through the process. We ask them if they would be open to us sharing some very critical information with them that could change their lives. And if they say, we have different personalities that we deal with every day, but if they were to say to me, look, I called just because I want to have free assessment done on my home. I'm really not looking to learn a lot about this. I'm not looking to get into the weeds on it. I've got things to do. My life is very busy. I don't want to know. You'd be shocked. I hear that from time to time. People who will tell me, I don't want to know what is going on in this house. If they're receptive to it, then I explain to them the very first thing. I want you to know that where you are right now seems overwhelming, and I get that. Okay. Everything seems overwhelming right now for you. But I want you to know that through this conversation we're about to have, the one thing I want you to remember is that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. There are solutions for all of the things that we're going to discuss. So we're going to discuss some things, you're going to learn some things, and they're going to probably weigh on you. But I want you to hold on to that piece of information that there's a solution to each one of these things we're going to talk about. And there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And then I explained to them that Spotless is not your traditional mitigation company. Spotless is a company that is about indoor air and health quality. We're looking for quality of living, quality of life, quality of health. So we're going to take you from, I think I have an issue, discovering whether or not you have an issue, putting together a game plan on how to deal with that issue, finding the right partners that are going to take care of the issue correctly the first time so we don't waste your money. And then we have to deal with, now that we got the house, well, now we have to deal with your body. Okay, because the body doesn't get well on its own after this. Once you've been exposed, the body has to go through a cycle of cleanup the same way that the indoor living environment did. And once the body is well, the biggest thing of all is nobody ever wants to go back here. You don't ever want to do this again. So, in the journey of going from, do I have a problem, to getting my body and home well, in that journey, we're also going to be sharing with you all of the different things that you can implement and or utilize to make sure this never happens again. When we explain that to them before we get into the weeds, it's almost like they have a breath of fresh air because nobody is doing that with them. To that point in time, they've kind of been ran in circles in the medical society, and they've been ran in circles in the construction industry. They've been ran in circles in the mold and water damage mitigation industry, because there is no company out there that I'm aware of that is all encompassing and willing to take the time, starting with listening first.
Yeah. And just hearing that rundown of the process there, you can already tell you go so far beyond anyone else in the space. This app is absolutely incredible because you guys get it, and when you're in that space of, I know there's something wrong with my house, I can't work it out, and then you call a remediation company, and all they really care about is ripping out the drywall and taking your money. I mean, that's got to be such a breath of fresh air. I mean, what was really interesting in what you just said was the lady who had the cancer and had it keep coming back. I mean, is that a common symptom that you find when people call you, or like what other symptoms do you typically hear?
You know, when we started out really understanding that this was an epidemic, and the way that it came to be kind of a light bulb realization moment for us was physically going to these homes. Okay. People would call, we would set up the appointment, we would go to their homes, and we would go meet with them and talk to them. And when they would answer the door, there are certain things about their physical affect that we would notice that was pretty consistent amongst sick home syndrome occupants. And some of those were losing their hair, or their hair was very dry and brittle. Their skin was very dry. They would have a very large slowdown and healing process for different ailments, from head colds to even a scratch. If they got a scratch on the body couldn't heal as quickly as it once did. And people would write that off as, I'm getting older. No, it's not about getting older. And no, your hair doesn't look like that because you're just using the wrong shampoo. Doesn't look that way because you're just getting older. And this is what people think. You know, they often think, well, it's par for the course. I mean, it happens to everybody. And that's kind of a critical point too. Over 70% of housing, or over 70% of indoor living environments in America, are dealing with a major mold or mycotoxin issue. And there are some idiosyncrasies to that, Scott, that we need to discuss. Just because a home has a mold issue or had a mold issue and it was remediated, mitigated, taken care of, does not mean that that home is safe and clean and healthy for you to occupy. Because as we've discussed, there are the ancillary toxins that are put off from these molds that are left behind. So somebody mitigates for mold, they have a mold test, house is clear, they move back in, they're like, woohoo, let's get back to living life. And the health continues to decline at a rapid rate, and they don't understand why. Then they're blaming the mitigation company because they think the mitigation company missed something or didn't do something right. And the mitigation companies are not knowledgeable on this topic. And so they're thinking they did everything right. The mold test came back good. So what is everybody up in arms about? Well, there's a piece of the puzzle that science knows about, where it's aware, it just doesn't know how to deal with it. Now we're learning how to deal with it. And we have a solution and plan for that. But when we were going to these doors, Caleb and I started to look at each other and say, I'm recognizing, like kind behaviors and like kind physicalities, like odors and like kind setups and houses. So when we walk into a home and we notice it's in disarray and they say to us, we're sleeping 20 hours a day, we can't work, we're out of work because we're so sick, our hair is falling out, we have eczema head to toe, I can't eat, I'm losing weight at a rate that is something like that of anorexia. There's a mycotoxin that causes that, can cause that. There's also a mycotoxin that can cause weight gain in excess of 100 pounds in a matter of months. And that one, even if you were to starve yourself, you will still put the weight on. And
Mm.
so we hear these different nuances. I'm gaining weight at an all-time rapid level. I'm losing weight at an all-time rapid high. I'm losing my hair. I can't sleep, or I can't get up. I can't wake up. I go comatose. I feel like I'm in a fog. My eyesight has declined rapidly. And these are all the things. And you'd be shocked when people recognize they're in trouble. They're super willing to give you all the information. They need you to hear what they're saying, and they just give it to us. And Caleb and I take that in, and we're like, okay, yes, you're meeting, you're the classic representation of what we see. And once the testing is done on the property, it's validated that you are correct. And then we also have testing that can be done on the human body to determine that that body has been invaded as well, so that that customer has definitive answers. No more guessing. We take them out of the I don't know zone. I'm scared because I don't know. Things that the thing that probably scares humans the most is the unknown. So that's the
Yeah.
commonality we see amongst these families. And that's where Caleb and I started to say there is a common theme to a sick family, even as much as when they call the first time, if their voice is breaking, it's cracking on them. And we will say to them, do you have a cold? No, it's my throat's been like this. My voice has been this way for the last couple of years. I'm not sure why. That is a key indicator that they are in a sick home.
Hmm. Man, as it's so wide ranging, isn't it? And it's the type of thing you go to your doctor and you say, hey, I've got this symptom. They're just going to give you a pill. They're not going to do any deeper exploration, and then you're never going to get healed. I mean, going back to sort of the mold issue, apart from the symptoms that you're obviously very adept at spotting, are there certain things on the property that would make you think, yeah, there's probably hidden mold here, even though you can't really see anything?
So we have a thing that we do, and often clients scratch their heads when we do it. When we do a site visit, the very first thing I do is I will take a picture of the home from the front, and then I will walk around the perimeter of the property, and I will do a video of the perimeter of the property, everything from the rooftop to the grounds below. I am looking for specific things, what I call weaknesses in the build. And there are many different kinds. If there's a chimney in that house, I know that there's a good chance that there is a leak around the flashing on that chimney, and or spalling in the brick, and or failure in the cap. There are many points on a chimney that can lead to an internal leak that's hidden that people don't find for years. There are gutters, there are perforations in siding. Things happen. People don't inspect the exterior of their homes on a regular basis to do checkup, well-being checkups on their homes. The lay of the land, the ground, how the ground is formed around the house, the downspouts, whether or not they're rooted out away from the home. If there's a sump pump, is that being rooted out away from the house far enough? Some people think get it out 2-3 feet, we're good. That's not the case. Shrubbery and vegetation around the home is a problem. Separation between porches, front porches, back porches, the separation between that and the actual physical home. If the home is on a crawl space, I have a big problem with those. So these are all things that say to me from the exterior. Perforation points from cable companies, plumbing companies, gas line companies. Perforation points are another one. If there's brick and they haven't treated the brick every 2 years with a coating, a permeable coating, to keep wicking of moisture from the outside from going into the brick, meeting with the structural wood framing on the inside. There is a gap, an air gap, but that that masonry product brick naturally is going to take any moisture and is going to absorb it. It likes that, same way that concrete slabs like that. And then, of course, we geniuses took it and smacked it right up against, wood and said, well, we got an air gap, so we're good. That air gap doesn't always stay that way. And often the hangers that attach those bricks to the main framing of the home will start to fail, or things will start to crack and separate, and you get little fractures, and water makes its way into the home that way. We had an interesting case years ago. Nobody could figure it out. The basement was flooding on a home, and insurance came out. They sent 2 adjusters out. They had an investigator come out. They had an engineer come out. Nobody could figure it out. Everybody thought that the water was rising from the floor of the home. And I went out there and I put a thermal camera on the walls, and I could tell that there could be some affect coming in from one corner on the wall about 8 foot high. So I went outside, looked, and I didn't see anything glaring right off the bat. So what I did, and this is where I learned perforations are key in a home, one of the keys, I took a hose and I blasted the side of the house, and I had my guys blast the side of the house with what we were imitating as high wind sideline rain, blasting at the home from about 12 foot up down. And I went into the basement and I watched and I watched and I watched, and here came the water, and the water developed on the ground. I mean, that's where it was coming from. But I kept saying to myself, there's no cracks. There's no cracks in this foundation here. There's something else going on. So I followed into the cinder block wall. I discovered that a concentric pipe that was exiting the outside of the house but was running into the house, where it came into the house right above the cinder block wall. Okay, so cinder blocks are open and hollow from the top. Right above the cinder block wall, the concentric pipe had a crack in the bottom of it that nobody knew was there. And there it had the concentric pipe, instead of being flat and flush because of the crack, it had actually caved in. Somebody had done something. A plumber had tried shoving something in that wall, and he hit that concentric pipe, and he basically crushed it in right there in the center. So the concentric pipe was tilted down. Every time the rain ran down the brick, when they had sideline wind rains, and that particular 3 or 4 month run, we had an extensive amount of high level winds, 60, 70 mile an hour winds driving rains at houses. So I knew that this was a problem in the area. So when we simulated that, it hit the concentric pipe, it rode the concentric pipe into the center of the cinder block wall, and the water was running in on the concentric, hitting down in the center of the cinder block wall, which is why the drywall was dry. That's why everybody was getting dry readings on the wall. But the cinder block, the water was running down the center of the cinder blocks to the floor. It was hitting the floor, and then it was filling up that bottom cinder block, and it was oozing out onto the floor of the basement, which is why everybody said it's hydrostatic pressure. It's coming from the ground up. Problem is, the ground was 8 feet down from the earth at the top, where the concentric pipe was sticking out of the house. There was something not adding up on that for me. And I was able to photo document it. We took special cameras, stuck them in the holes. We were able to photo document everything. And when we got done with the case, the insurance company called me and they said, we've never seen a case like this before. And we've never had anybody dive into one like this before to get this covered. In the end of all of it, it ended up that the homeowner's house got covered 100% for both the mitigation and the rebuild, whereas previously he was going to have to pay out of pocket because insurance and all of the people involved were saying this was hydrostatic pressure, it was coming from the ground up, and they don't have coverage for that. So we were able to get that taken care of.
And I imagine if that homeowner had gone to other companies, they would have just said, this isn't worth our time to even try and diagnose properly. You really went to the nth degree there to try and solve that for them. That just goes to show your customer service.
Took me and my guys about 2 hours to get it all worked out. And once we were done with it, we had the entire Not only did we have the client fully on board with us, seeing us at a different light completely, but now we also had two adjusters, an engineer, and an insurance carrier looking at us differently. We were now partners in getting these things done correctly the first time, and getting coverages.
Yeah, and that's amazing. Obviously, we've spoken a lot about symptoms, about mycotoxins and things like that. You guys aren't doctors. So how do you talk to homeowners about that type of thing without making medical claims, without promising health outcomes? Because you can't promise it because you're not qualified in that
So
sense.
when we talk with our clients, we let them know that this is what we have seen in the industry. This is what our experience has taught us. And then we also connect people. So clientele that we have had in the past that we have helped, we tell the current person that is looking at us, we have people that you can talk to that we have walked through from A to Z the process, and you can get from them the qualification, clarification, the credibility that we hold. You can talk to them and get that credibility straight from them, not from us. You don't need to feel like we're convincing you of something. We're here if you need us, but we have so much business. We don't have to have your business. So we're not, if you decide we're not the right people for you, we would rather you find somebody else to help you if you're not comfortable with us. We want a client who feels 100% confident that Spotless has their back and Spotless is going to fight for them and get them everything that they need to get out of the hell that they're living in, whatever that means. And sometimes that's a big exploration process. Sometimes we have to explore, and the data points that we currently have aren't enough, which means that Spotless has to go to task in discovery and help discover what's going on, much like the case I just told you about. We don't simply just take the answers that we're given. We look for them to be backed up by actual data.
Got it. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense because that was a question I had based on everything you were saying. Because you've obviously done the research, you read the papers and everything.
So our
Yeah, that makes a lot of
clientele,
sense.
just to kind of elaborate
So
on
I
that a
guess
little bit, our clientele are actually partnered up with people in the industry that handle the medical side of it. So because we have been doing this for so long, and because we've had so many different clientele that have gone through things and have had great success, we know naturopathic, holistic doctors, even medical doctors who now are on board with this, who we can say, listen, here are 3 different doctors, clinics that you can go to. Call these and talk to them because they understand what you're dealing with and know you're not crazy, and they're not going to tell you you're crazy, and they're not just going to hand you a cream. They're going to give you a scope of getting your body healthy. So we try not to be the experts
okay.
in
So
that.
yeah. Yeah, which is good because then your focus is on the remediation side and on the diagnosis of the property side, but you've also got this whole wealth of knowledge that's going to help someone get healthy as well, which is it's an incredible one-two punch, really. What would you say to someone who's feeling dismissed, feeling overwhelmed, feeling like I'm not sure whether my home even is sick? That just sounds crazy. How could a home be sick? Like, what would you say to someone
I
like that?
when somebody calls me and they say, I just don't know if this is really, maybe I'm just imagining this. I'm just kind of exploring. I kind of feel like maybe there's something going on, but I really have no proof of this. I ask them to ask themselves a question. Your home is one of the largest investments that you're going to make in your lifetime. So is your health. If those two are not thriving, you're going backwards. If the investment you have in your home is going backwards with the home becoming sick or degrading in nature because it has an issue you're unaware of, or maybe it has an issue you are aware of, right? Maybe the flashing around the chimney is bad, but you just really haven't explored how to get that repaired. And that's leading to bigger issues, degradation of additional building materials around that fireplace, degradation of the internal health of the home. Then that flows over to you and your family. When your health starts to go south, you now become less productive. Your family becomes less productive, and your ability to earn money starts to get affected by that, as well as the medical bills that come at you as a result of these ancillary illnesses that hit you on a regular basis because you're hotboxing in a sick home. So now you're losing money due to to not being productive. You're losing money trying to stay alive and have some quality of life. And you're losing equity in a property because you're not buttoning up a hole and taking care of a major problem. And you're making the home sicker and sicker every day, which gets more and more expensive to mitigate with each passing day. It's not worth it. Your health and your home are the two biggest investments most people will make in a lifetime. They are not the two things to mess around with or to blow off. And so I ask people to ask themselves that question. And I can't tell you the number of people that we have had who have said, I don't know how I could feasibly afford, if I am in this situation, I don't know how I could feasibly afford to go down this road. I'm going to put this on the back burner
Mm.
and I'll revisit it in 6 months or a year. And we usually get the call. In fact, I got a text this morning from a family who said, Tina, we've talked and we've changed our minds. We need your help today. They had decided they were going to put it off for another year. And I got that text this morning because once you really think about that and realize that the goal all of us have is to go upward in momentum and attain higher ground, when we're allowing for our home and our health to decline, we're actually going backwards.
Yeah, I mean, the bottom line here is money's money, but your health and the health of your family, when you've got kids in a home and the home's making them
That's
sick, like
right.
that's your legacy that you're not taking care of there. And that's really heartbreaking. And when you're thinking, I don't have the money to get this fixed, that's an issue in and of itself. And do you guys do payment plans and things like that for people who
Yes.
are
So
in
we
financial
actually
difficulty?
help people to get funded. So we have a little ourselves, we will help families ourselves. We also have ways that we can help get them additional funding to be able to get the work done, both the mitigation and any rebuild if necessary, if they have rebuild that's involved. And then we also from time to time do philanthropic jobs for people. Those are not things we put out there every day, obviously. Those are the really serious, very intricate jobs where we've deemed that this is the family and or property that really needs that. If we're going to take and do any philanthropic work in 1 year, we really dial into which property we're going to do that with. And it's usually a case that moves all of us here. Everybody is like, this is the one. We all know it when it comes in, and we just say, this is it. This is the job we need to do this quarter. This is the philanthropic job we need to do.
Yeah. So the money objection, the I can't afford it, it's not even a reason they shouldn't reach out because there are things that you
We have
can do to help with
financing.
that.
I mean, we do so many different, and
Yes.
we'll toss the ball with them. We'll go back and forth and say, let's figure this out. There are multiple ways. But I will also tell you this, Scott, if I've got somebody that's talking to me and we determine, I will give you a kind of a case that we had. All of the chimneys in the house were really bad. All of the windows in the house were degraded beyond degraded. I mean, they were super, super old. They were original to the home, and the leaks were coming in all over. They had 2 HVAC systems, both of which were broken. They were on a crawl space on a hill. Okay, so the house was at the bottom of the hill. They were on a crawl space, so the water was rushing in, and they had no exterior drain system at the back of the house to catch the water and divert it. There were so many problems with the house. The mold was off the charts in that house. The mycotoxins were off the charts in that house. All of the animals were either dying, dead, or developing medical conditions that were serious conditions. The humans were in serious conditions so bad that they were hospitalized. When the family came to me about that house, I said to them, between all of the repairs that the home needs, all of the mitigation it's going to need, all of the rebuild it's going to need, and the preventative, the house is upside down more than you could even think. You need to let someone else who understands the gravity of it and has the money to deal with it either take the home, or you need to bulldoze the home and start over from the ground up. And some people don't want to hear that. but
Mm.
that is the truth. Again, your health is not worth taking the chance and investing all of that money in a home that has that many problems. Because for all the problems that you see, there's going to be or could be problems that you don't yet see that develop during mitigation when you start opening walls and you discover, oh my gosh, there's this too.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. That's a sobering note to end on, but thank you so much for your time. So much good stuff in there. Really appreciate that.
Thank
And
you,
I'm sure we'll
Scott.
speak again soon.